Now, let's try and re-establish our connection and get back to this story. Sisisi Tolashe is the new president of the ANC Women's League. Tolashe cruised with 1,729 votes to beat her rivals Bathabile Dlamini and Thembeka Mchunu. Let's get more reaction from gender equity activist Phelisa Nkomo. A very good evening, Phelisa. Welcome to Newsnight. Let's start by getting your reaction to the newly elected leader.
Well, I mean, I just want to congratulate Comrade Sisisi Tolashe for being elected as the president of the ANC Women's League. I think at the time where there's an increased demand for fresh perspective and thinking around how to resolve challenges that are confronted in society in South Africa, which the president listed so well about the 10 points that is highlighted. But also for me, one of the other things that is also important is the diverse nature from a generational perspective of people who have been elected within the National Executive Committee. And I think for me, it reflects again that the ANC Women's League wants to really contribute politically in this country, have a voice, but also at the same time part of, a solution thinking as far as resolving the challenges around gender justice related issues, but also specifically women's rights.
And already we are hearing young women, and we are seeing their comments across the social media platforms saying, could they not have found perhaps a younger leader to take over from Bathabile Dlamini? What would you say to that?
I mean, I do think that we need to deal with South Africa with the notion of ageism, right? And part of it has to do with the fact that women consistently, when they take leadership positions of power, happen to be older, are seen as people who might not have contribution or wisdom to contribute towards rebuilding the women's league. I think Comrade Sisisi has a lot of experience in leadership, but also the point I made, and I think what younger women must also appreciate, is the intergenerational nature of the league. That is actually elected within the Women's League, meaning that what the Women's League wants to have is to have their pulse in every generation, in terms of age, everyone that is a South African. So in essence, they should see that Comrade Sisisi as the president is going to contribute, bring in all the collective wisdom she has acquired to date to actually contribute to building the ANC Women's League, including contributing into the other younger women who have managed to make it into the leadership position. So I think as women in South Africa, we actually need to stop this thing of being so negative about ourselves, but also really support each other and appreciate that we still are able to see leadership qualities amongst each other. And I'm hoping that amongst the key things is going to do is to rally different types of women to come and support the Women's League, but also champion, as the president has called, around the issues of women's rights.
And in fact, on that point, Phelisa, the president also mentioned that women are natural entrepreneurs, and he would like to see more women owning land in our country. A lot of what the president said this evening, Phelisa, in his closing remarks, are things we've heard before, but I'd like to get your reaction as an activist. Are we going to see execution of these plans where women are concerned in particular anytime soon? From your assessment, what would you say?
Well, I do think, in fact, I share your sentiment that some of these progressive speeches have been made before. I think the president made a good speech. I just want to make that emphasis. But I think what he's also done is to say to the women, the ANC Women's League, is that you are the critical component of ensuring we achieve economic transformation in this country. The land question is very important, by the way, because for anyone to be able to build or lead a productive life, access to land is important, both for food production, but also to be able for them to pursue any of their entrepreneurial ambition. But there's a basic question in South Africa that we're not dealing with, is that even if women can have access to land, if the economy is growing at less than 2% it's going to be difficult for women to actually build or run thriving businesses. So that's the first issue. The second issue is the fact that I think it comes across from the president's speech around the role of the government supporting private sector development. So he is saying 40% of public sector procurement must actually be targeting women. But to date, that regulation has not been finalized within the public sector. So in essence, what the Women's League needs to do is to push that this actually must be a regulation, because you can't hold anyone accountable right now for that 40% public procurement. There's something else that we also need to deal with around it for economic transformation, and particularly building vibrant entrepreneurs in South Africa, is investment in product development. Now, why product development is important is the fact that historically, Black people were excluded in the economy. So, and as such, all Black people knew was to sell their labor in labor markets or in the economy. So there's never been an investment, both from an education perspective, but also even when they participate in labor markets, to produce or to manufacture or to do any product development. And that's why most of the entrepreneurs we've seen in the last 29 years have become men, because all they'll do is that they'll see an opportunity, they'll go and buy a product outside of South Africa and bring it back and get to assemble and consume it. So that's one of the key things that the ANCWL League must actually push government for, is that a risk-averse attitude in building a vibrant economy that actually embeds women and support women is something that must be resolved as of yesterday. And currently, all we do is that we make all the progressive speeches, but with minimal political commitment, both from a resourcing perspective, because support on product development requires access to resources. Now, I like the emphasis when the president says access to productive assets, which include access to finance, right? But also he's saying the state is going to support. But this has been the conversation of 10 years to date, but we need to see something differently. So I think that assignment now has been given to ANCWL League to look at not only social norms that limits women to have access to land because of cultural reasons, but also fundamentally that in fact the cities or the municipalities must be able to give land to women and support small, medium enterprises who are operating in the informal sector. I mean, if you drive in certain small towns, women would have been trading for 15 to 20 years without a proper shelter, without a proper abolition facilities, without a proper support from the local municipalities. So I do think that the progressive agenda that the president has announced, the ANCWL League must take it forward to make it sure that we deal with the administrative hurdles, which normally inhibits women to access all these opportunities, but also fundamentally to push for much more political commitment for public sector in particular. But I know that there's private sector as well, which needs to really come into the party, because they don't have a lot of regulations for people to actually access opportunities. So in essence, Women's League must also bring in private sector to actually call for the economic opportunities to be opened up for Black women in this country.
Right, and of course, just before we run out of time, Phelisa, the president also mentioned very specifically to a resounding cheers in the room, the fact that Banyana Banyana must also be paid the same pay that Bafana are being paid. Now, historically, we know this has been a subject of much conversations for as long as the Federation reinstated Banyana Banyana. And to date, I mean, they're currently at the World Cup right now, doing really well, but they're not getting the same treatment. So would the ANC Women's League, from where you stand, be able to further these objectives for these young athletes? Obviously, we're talking football here, but there are other sectors.
In fact, exactly. I think what the Women's League needs to change that into is to be that voice of reason for workers who are vulnerable. So we're talking about Babanya Banyana, we're talking about women who are working in farms, who are paid till the job system. We're talking about domestic workers who continue to contribute in the unpaid, work or unproductive work that the president was referring to, that the women's dignity practice. We're talking about women who are working in the health sector, both in the food chain, and for example, in the clothing sector, who are also underpaid. So when the president was actually talking about equal work for equal pay, but also fundamentally, I say women's league shine a spotlight and the true advocate for women who actually subjected into discriminatory practices within the workplace. I like the fact that he raised the issue of sexual harassment and sex for jobs, because it's a massive issue, particularly in projects around extended public works project and community works in municipalities. And it means that he has actually given a much more bigger assignment to the women. But one of the other things I think is very important is the fact that he has actually asked Women's League to be part of the election machinery of the in the next election, which is important because 55% of black women in this country vote for the ANC. And that's why the ANC Women's League is a champion for women who are precarious in society.
Thank you so much. That's gender equality activist Phelisa Nkomo joining us live there. Just a pity about your connection there. I would have loved to chat to you a bit more because there are so many issues that the president touched on, which almost felt like for me was same song, different day, but same tune. We've heard all of this before, but what is being done about it tangibly right now in real time?